I'm going to jump straight into it. No, I'm not going to jump straight into it. I'm going to do a couple of polls. So this is just a little bit of fun to start off with. And it will lead in, if you're patient and if you're happy to be led in, it'll lead into something that I want to talk about, and that will make a lot of sense as we go. So first poll is basically, you should see it on screen. No?
Yes, we can
Tell
see
me
it.
if you see a poll.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what you see. Tell me. This is the first time I've run polls.
The question is, if you had to represent the meaning of life, the universe, and everything in numbers, what would you choose?
Okay. So yeah, go for that and tell me what you think.
People are still answering. Yep.
Okay, it's because I had my share screen on as well. It's a lot of 42s. I wonder why that is.
A lot of 42, yes. It's the highest.
All right,
so I think everyone got it.
But yeah, basically, it wasn't a trick question, but you might see some sort of pattern there, as in 7 times 3 is 21, and then we've got 21, 42, 63. One of the things that I'm going to talk a little bit about is this kind of life stuff, where you might, form yourself up from the age of 7, from the age of 14 to the age of 21. You might then double down on that. Once you've created your sense of self, you might then burn and form yourself in a furnace of life to get to the age of 42. And I think Douglas Adams, with the meaning of life, the universe and everything, was a little bit prescient in the foreshadowing of what it all is about, that it really isn't until you get to the age of 42 that you can become an actual vessel, that you can become something worthy of utility, worthy of servicing others in your community and the people that surround you. And really, from the age of 42 to 63, they're the golden years. They're the times when you actually help people out and double down on the experience that you've gained in your earlier years, from adulthood through to early career and mid-career, right? That's something I want to talk about. So I can share the results, and it's pretty compelling. Everyone knows about Douglas Adams, the meaning of life, universe, and everything. Second poll, if you're going to be a life hacker, what kind of hat might you wear? And let me launch it. Now, this isn't gender biased. The whole idea about the pink hat for supporting family and close relations is my wife's name is Barbara, so I get to use pink as associated with my family due to that, with Barbie being popular recently. And blue or teal or cyan is a color represented or close to Link Digital, so I get to use that as well. It's not gender. Everyone wants to be white hat. What a biased group of good do-gooders you all are. Right? But yeah, no one thinks it's about work or career, which is interesting. I'm sure there was at least one person, but fantastic. Share the results. That's what you all chose. Pretty much you all want to be white hat hackers, or life hackers, I should say. All right. So the topic for today was, it's a little bit of an explainer, creating meaningful change. Link Digital has been around for a while, 22 years. I do want to just kind of anchor down a little bit on Link, because as a company, we're trying to transition, and we have been doing some neat stuff in the open data sector for the last sort of 10, 12 years. We'd like to do more, and we've just started doing more. So working out and kind of communicating what creating meaningful change means for us as a company and us as a group of people, and what it means for us in terms of what we can do for our clients and other people in the community is important. If others connect with it, then it's going to be important for them, and that's what we're hoping for. So kind of what is it? Well, we'll have to get to that. But we are a software company. We do technical services, so professional services, managed services. But importantly, we use a collaborative value chain. So the supply chain, essentially, in the way that we create value for folks in this sort of like market-orientated approach, is open source. It's CKAN, Drupal, other technologies as well. Like lots of technical companies will use open source as part of their value chain, and it's collaborative. Not everyone is like fully respecting or like going double down on the reciprocity and contributing back into projects. We like to feel like we're a high reciprocity company, that we do contribute back quite a bit to the projects we leverage. I would have to absolutely admit we don't contribute back into a project like Drupal as much as we could, but lots of folks do, and that's fantastic. We contribute back into CKAN an awful lot. And I think that's kind of like a good way of balancing out the way that you can use, abuse, and contribute back into open source projects. But meaningful change. So whom we do it for is the staff, clients, and community. And I want to go into that a little bit and what that actually means. So how exactly would we be wanting to do that? How would we plan to do that? And how do we actually try and activate that? So for staff, it's about enhancing the capabilities and well-being of our staff. Well-being could be financial, it could be situational, it could be career advancement and professional abilities, skills, and also lots of different opportunities. But essentially, that's like a really key important thing for us as an entity, as a company, that the people who collectively form up and become us, the people, are the most important kind of element of whom we are. Obviously, we do all this for the purpose of service, and the primary service group that we're creating value for our clients, because we have commercial arrangements with them. We want to do that with a particular subset of clients, or a particular set of clients that are aligned with what we want to do, and that's folks who are looking for good solutions. We've been lucky enough to pivot towards open data type or civic tech type of projects over the last 10 to 12 years. And that's a really nice fit for us. So we can get the right kind of people with the right kind of clients, the right kind of projects, and that kind of correlation, that cohesion is really important. But then the last thing is really about supporting the development of resilient and sustainable communities. So what does that kind of mean? Well, because we have this bias of being created as an Australian company in Canberra, which is a government town, the nation's capital here in Australia, for me personally, and for the kind of like influence that has created, that means supporting liberal democracies. That means supporting the kind of general values of liberal democracies, market capitalism, and other types of models that have pretty much been baked into someone like myself and other Australians since we've been preschool and kindergarten type chaps. So where that goes beyond that into other cultures, other economies, and other jurisdictions is how Link Digital is growing up and maturing, and how we can support other sustainability of other communities, and particularly those connected in with our staff is really important for us. But essentially, that's the meaningful change. That's who we do it for, and that's how we want to execute. It gets more interesting because we're about to like kind of talk about projects and such, but our operating model, again, this is all context. So we are an Australian company. We're Australian owned, privately owned. You can put a sticker on that. It's great stuff. We've been around for 22 years. 6% of the company is owned by current employees, which is fantastic. The rest is owned by my wife and I, which essentially means that I get to control the remaining 94%, and all of my evil machinations get to come to the fore, right? However, The cool thing is that I'm beyond 42 now. So the meaning of life and that kind of like transformation, that kind of realization of what you can do has kind of occurred. I'm 51, and what I'm hoping to do is transition the company into a better operating model that will support staff, clients, and the community in a much more practical, realistic, and ongoing perpetual way. So governance changes, ownership changes, divestment of ownership by folks like myself and my wife. As a company, though, currently we differentiate because we're a CKAN specialist. That's kind of like our protected barrier. Like that makes us defensible as an organisation with our skill set and with our ability to deliver value for folks. All that kind of stuff is commercially important, but we can do more. So we're going to build a cathedral. Well, maybe not a cathedral, but back in the day, things like cathedrals were embarked on by folks with a whole bunch of belief and a whole bunch of, I guess, fervour, maybe religious fervour and intention to create a place of worship and all this kind of stuff. A whole bunch of cultural artefacts were baked into the opportunity to do this. And this particular one, Notre Dame, took I think it was 623 years, and that's pretty impressive. Like, I can't imagine anything going through an election cycle or 2 or 3 or 4 or some number of dozens such that we can build these sorts of things today based on the kind of conviction that we're showing as a civilization, as a group of people, or as a jurisdiction, or as a culture. And this is a belief, this is conviction, it's not religion. I mean, obviously religion is fantastic in this regard, but the kinds of things that I'm hoping that we can do with Link Digital, we can hope to do with others in the community, this collaborative ecosystem, is to provide for this kind of conviction, create a roadmap, create a funnel, create a way to move forward with things that are worthy of being built over like very long time scales. So the future operating model, I talked about the current. This is the kind of future operating model that I'm hoping for and I'm working towards with folks in the company, folks outside the company, and this is what we're building towards. So this call today is kind of like a transparency thing, right? In a lot of organizations, you can talk about being white hat, you can talk about being pink, blue, or black hat, but you don't really own the color of your hat. The people who see you and perceive you own the color of the hat. Essentially, you're a grey hat, no matter what you might believe you are, and others get the chance to perceive what kind of actor you are. And others believe or not believe in whether or not you're a good actor. So transparency helps break down some of those perceptions or like inform some of those perceptions. So this call is this opportunity to sort of like build a stronger perception based on a public declaration. It's kind of putting it out there, right? So Link CMC is a link creating meaningful change. It's a governance model. It's basically something that would sit above the commercial entity of Link Digital. It doesn't exist, needs to exist, aiming for it to exist. Link Digital is a commercial entity, will have commercial operations. We've already talked internally about creating a staff wealth fund so that we don't need to create ownership or ESOP programs for staff. We can create almost like a superannuation type fund for staff so that people who can build the value of the company can be rewarded for helping to build that value of the company through basically a revenue share that goes into the staff wealth fund. But the cooler things for folks outside of Link, first and foremost, is really the ecosystem enablement. That's the collaborative value ecosystem stuff. So on the right-hand side, I've pulled it out there as like a contributor wealth fund, but really that's just everyone working together to generate inbound revenues that support the kind of collaboration from which we all get a common wealth. We all get common benefits. We all get common knowledge, confidence, understanding, and direction. And so this might be consortia type pitching for funding that goes to different funds around the world. Recently in the US, some great folks from University of Pittsburgh and DAT here in New Jersey company were awarded a second stage of a really significant program called POSE, which is the Pathway for Open Source Ecosystems. That's a $1.5 million grant over 2 years that will help the CKAN project as an example, and as a practical example, develop its ecosystem enablement, ecosystem strength and resilience and sustainability. So that team has put that together. That's a really good example. And I think there's a lot more opportunity for projects, not just CKAN, but projects from the kinds of civic tech orientated folks on this call to work on that kind of grant application and funding requests. So you can call it research development and then ecosystem enablement, if you think about it that way. On the left, on the other side, is the big, audacious, hairy goal type operation, which is a beneficiary wealth fund. So for Link as an entity, this would mean, as I said, a divestment of ownership of the actual owners of Link, my wife and I, allows Link to kind of transition into this like non-profit governance model. Now, once you do that, you get the opportunity to solicit and hopefully get attractive offers from philanthropists or fund owners that would like to invest into the non-profit for-purpose type direction that you're trying to take the entity or the organization. So very keen to explore that. What did I say? 42, 63. So I'm 51. I still got another 12 years to try and crack that nut. It's not something that I'm expecting, or myself or the company is expecting to like just solve in the next 5 minutes, 6 months. But that is ultimately how to create a multi-generational or a multi-decade type operation, having a fairly large commercial fund upon which the derived benefits or the investment returns can then fund the activities that are for purpose operations. So that's where we're trying to move to. And that's all the public disclosures. The cool thing is, this is where I'm hoping for folks to also want to jump in. I've had good chats describing some of this with folks on this call and folks outside this call as well. I think there is kind of this ability to create a public futures, a digital public institution, if you will, digital public kind of collectives. I am thinking myself personally as this as being like a public sector type operation, right? The public sector operations where there's a recognition that public governance, public technology, the technocracy of how we can do things quite well and learn and iterate and use digital technologies to support those sorts of activities is not just beyond bureaucracy. It's a symbiotic component of bureaucracy, and we can support that better if we find innovative business models and directions that we can go in. And collaborative value ecosystems are a great place to start because they already exist. We already benefit from open source, open innovation, open government, open transparency. All sorts of different open type programs exist, and we all feed into those and we all benefit from them. So yeah, digital public futures, a force of people and organizations committed to the excellence in public technology, of collaborative governance, of public code, and a fitness for market digital public goods, delivering social impact beyond the horizon, and literally beyond collection horizons and other types of horizons. So how, again, we're going to get to questions, we're going to get to discussions, and that's the whole point of a public forum. But we want to get more people involved in civic tech. we want to get more people involved in the issues surrounding or the demands surrounding civic tech. So open data is an example. We want people to demand data to be open. So we need to work on that demand side of the equation. We don't want to just work on the supply side with governments and have them release data. We need to give the community good reasons to demand data as well, and not just assume that the intermediaries need to be working on the supply side. With civic tech as well, we need people to be demanding better civic technology to support service delivery. We need to be conducting and coordinating R&D activities to build for an equitable and achievable future. We need to actually understand how we can achieve that, have very high confidence from a scientific, research-oriented perspective, and then be able to inform the way we would develop towards those outcomes. Again, iterative and testable. And we want to be able to break through to traditional business models. This is something that just never stops being talked about. How do we change business models? How do we adopt open source business models? How do we have different types of business models that will support the kind of innovation that's required? And I do think there's a mix of public funding that should and must be lobbied for to be put into consortia bids, consortia funds that will then build the kind of public infrastructures that we need. So concepts like digital public goods, digital public infrastructure, the Digital Public Goods Alliance as an entity structure and a global movement, public code and the ways of governing public code. These are all great things that are happening right now. So I think there's an inflection point, there's a tipping point, there is a way to move forward with these things. So the how is achievable. But can we do this? So yeah, we can. Last 3 months, the CKAN Core Initiative, which was presented at the CKAN Monthly Live just last week, has shown amazing progress. So Paul, who's on the call, has been coordinating activities by some folks, Ian, Adria, Sergey, and others, on updating core, updating CKAN for DCAT 3, and a bunch of other things that will progress the project. So performance improvements, of files. So Sergey Motnyuk has been doing some great stuff with file management as well. There's Bryce on the call and there's Peter on the call, and I've chatted to both of these chaps around doing a global hackathon, kind of inspired by some of these ideas. A challenge-based hackathon, which is about challenging other people, not to a high noon showdown, all guns blazing, but a high noon showdown for collaboration and coordination of activities. So I like the idea of building a network of folks by one entity challenging another entity to work with them, not to work against them, not to compete with them, but to work with them for a public outcome. And I think that's a kind of concept that could work really well. It's not like this is happening, this is just proposed, and I'm just suggesting that these are areas that can be really fleshed out and kind of invested in. Let's put those people to the task of chatting about it a little bit later. And then ecosystem enablement. So yeah, Bob, Joel, Sammy, this POSE project is fantastic. This Pathways for Open Source Ecosystem is a great example, but it's just one of the examples. Link has started to actively pitch for other types of grants, other types of funding that would resource towards other ecosystem enablement capabilities, research, development, and community. So things like a community manager or a sponsorship manager for projects like CKAN, but more generally for digital public goods, are things that Link is very, very keen to do. And actually, Open Source Institute. So here in Canberra, another little component to this is that there's a cool thing happened with University of Canberra. Open Source Institute was formed. I've been speaking with Carlos, who I think is on the call or might be on the call, And I'm going to be personally helping him out, and I would love to see Link, strike up something like a memorandum of understanding and more constructively work with OpenSci to open up some of these opportunities and bring some of this innovation not just to Canberra, but actually to a position where we can have projects that are digital public goods like CKAN be invested in such a way that we have a lot of assurity around the quality of the code, the security of the process, or the assurity of the process by which the code is packaged and delivered. And we can make it kind of like pre-vetted, pre-available, and quite ready for deployment under sort of like SOC 2 or other kind of quality assurance or assured capabilities. So the software bill of materials, things like this can be well declared, all of the sorts of things that aren't so easily done for an open source project because it takes a big, heavy lift for any one entity to do it. And because it's open source, everyone else gets the benefit. So it's a difficult thing for any one entity to sustainably invest in ongoing. But I think there's a chance to build that kind of innovation hub and that kind of like sovereign capability here in Canberra, here in Australia, to do that with a product like CKAN, and then make that available for anyone else to then basically just rebadge, repackage, and retick for their own local sovereign requirements. Making products like CKAN, available for critical technology use, sovereign technology use, things like this. And last one, public sector operations. So again, this is the big, hairy, audacious goal, but I'm going to give it a go. Like I said, I got a couple more. Well, I got a decade and a bit left of solid cognitive function. I'm going to have a really good go, trying to get a really good chunk of funding to create perpetual capabilities to deliver these things into the future, so that we're not constantly needing funding. We're not constantly needing a commercial entity and revenue models and profitability to support upstream contributions into good open source public code bases. I think there definitely needs to be funds, and those funds should derive the earnings that would support such activities. That's the idea. And we can go to the discussion, but there is more. So folks who saw the really cool vid on LinkedIn, Kate is kicking off an open partner program. I could let Kate talk about this, but I don't want to put her on the spot. But essentially, this is kind of like marketing orientated. This is about Link is already contributing into code with CKAN. We're contributing into other activities in terms of like community helping just generally. But there's other ways we contribute, just about amplifying and promoting people's stories, people's ideas, and people's capabilities that are in alignment with some of the ideas I've just discussed. So Kate's Open Partner Program is largely on that. And all it requires, if you want to jump in and try and catch up with Kate and talk about it, is you don't have marketing resources, but generally your organization is in alignment with the kind of ideals and things that we're trying to promote. And we can then help you. We can try and amplify your voice and give you opportunities that we might have privileged access to. They're fantastic for us, but if we can support others that are also in the space that don't have as much reach as we have, then fantastic, we can do that. And you can go to that URL, quickly type it down. No, Kate's probably dropping it into the chat right now, so I can chat. And now we're done. Now we can go to the chat and I can ping people like Bryce, people like Peter about the idea of the hackathon, but without putting them on the spot too much. What do you folks think?
Thanks for that, Stephen. I've already shared the link to the Open Partnership Program at the chat box. So please do let us know if anyone's interested. Yeah, so we're now open for to accept your questions. Paul Connor from Canadian Open Data Society.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. I don't see that. It's not so much a question as just a sort of a statement of support, that I see this as an opportunity to give a lot of people the chance to have the power to make the world more fair without making it less dynamic, less innovative, more keeping it moving forward, but at the same time leveling the playing field. There's all kinds of possibilities with this, and the communications thing is something I was actually going to mention. I'm glad that was front and center with this, because I find it's 20% the work and 80% the communications, because if you build it, they got to know about it, right? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, it's funny, the way that I got into this game was sort of helping to promote stuff that was already going on, which I thought was fantastic with open knowledge. And you get hooked, and once you get other folks listening and getting interested in the ideas that you're helping to promote, you're part of the system. I think that kind of that feedback loop is really important. Get a lot of benefit from it. But yeah, I know that Bryce, because we were at the an AI hackathon recently, and I gave him like a very energetic and probably eclectic overview of the hackathon idea. He later then did his due diligence and read through the document I prepared for Peter, and thought it wasn't too bad. But what do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, no, I'm really keen on how a global hackathon can help, get people thinking about and contributing to these issues. Yeah, no, I'm always keen for a hackathon. GovHack is a big one here in Canberra and across Australia, promoting open data, and just seeing the effects of that. How all these government institutes now are just so psyched about publishing data every year, just because they know people will be using it in a hackathon. So I'm really keen to see how this would have, positive effects like that.
And I've actually just clicked around to see who's here, and I can see Bob's here. So yeah, Bob, absolutely. God, tell us about Pose, because it's such an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. So we just got the approval from a grant from the U.S. National Science Foundation to implement a plan that we laid out with the community, I guess over a year ago now. So it's really all about strengthening the community around the software. We can't do any software development around this, but what we can do are things that we identified in the proposal. So identifying or creating some onboarding pathways for new people to contribute to the community at CKAN. The second piece of it's going to be developing processes for us to co-create products, activities, and events. So just all the things that are going to build relationships. So it could be that maybe we need better documentation or better marketing materials or other things like that, like having somebody who can work with the community to help with that. I think the third piece of it is promoting CKAN adoption and just coordinating on, who can go out and talk about the product and what kind of conversations do we need to have with people. And then, I think like the team working with Joel, especially, and Sammy at that here will really help to get people up to speed on the latest version of software, because that's a big vulnerability for a lot of people. And then we'll be able to do things like develop and track performance measures for the ecosystem's health, refresh the business plan, update the funding strategy, so that we can kind of be on top of all the things that have changed so much in the last 5 years. So that's I'll put the kind of the post that we did to announce this, and then there's an overall plan that I thought we had up, but we don't. It's just the thing that we submitted to the NSF with a lot more detail, but we'll share that real soon. But this is the website from the previous iteration of post. So
Awesome. Yeah, so for folks on the call, this is an awesome thing. It's just kicking off. I mean, it's a long time in the planning, of course, and there was a phase one, which is all about mapping the ecosystem and like understanding and deciding on what could really support CKAN as a project. And this phase two is about executing and delivering on some of those things. I see that Patricio and Sarah are here from Open Knowledge. So yeah, there has to be a call out to Open Knowledge. There has to be a call out to the opportunity for Open Knowledge to also double down on the kind of activities that are going on with CKAN at the moment. And it's not just CKAN, Open Knowledge have joined the Digital Public Goods Alliance. So I know that you folks also recognize the kind of change and the opportunity that's going on here. It'd be great if you could chime in and maybe let us know why. What do you think?
Well, thanks, Stephen, for presenting this. It sounds all very interesting. And I think in a way, what we have been wanting also to Open Knowledge is kind of like building this kind of bridges among all our communities to kind of like enhance also what is done at the ecosystem level. So yeah, I think that's great. I'd let maybe Patricio speak more on the second side of things.
Yes, sorry. I mean, I had to join late because I had to take my girlfriend to the airport. But I mean, in terms of like a CKAN digital public good, I think that was like a major milestone for CKAN. And the fact that it's now digital public good gives like a lot of credibility to the software as well. I mean, it's not that you didn't have it, but I have seen like several conferences in which people like mention CKAN and say that, and it's a digital public good, so it kind of like builds the brand like a lot. And also it helps like reaching because the digital public good like is a huge network. So yeah, I mean, and in the context of the Digital Public Good Alliance and CKAN, we always attend there as CKAN stewards in the digital public good. And there are always opportunities within the Digital Public Good Alliance to do things around CKAN, and they are more than welcome. So yes, there is a space that we can explore for sure.
Yeah, and I think the horizon goes beyond CKAN. I think digital public goods, digital public infrastructure is about supporting civil society and supporting civil cohesion. And if you were to go a little bit more, space tech, futuristic, it's supporting the future of civilization, right? Because we're not immune to the kind of threats that are facing us. We can have some pretty serious diverse effects if we blow out our population, our economies, our climate, our ecosystem. We can really kind of stuff things up. So we do need good governance, which is supported by good technology, which is supported by good direction, really. Like, where do we want to go as not just a civilization, which is almost like a blind thing, but as this collective of very disparate communities with its own direct community-oriented interests, which is geographically bound, it's family bound, it's culturally bound, and all of those things need to be respected. So I think technology has a really important part to play because, boy, I don't think humans are going to do it. If you've seen some of the leaders we've had in recent decades, it's not like technology is going to solve everything, but the collective ability that we all have as for good, for purpose technologists, civic activists as well. I think those things in combination provide a way for us to move forward. Now, there is someone else here. Oh, Carlos. Carlos is my new best buddy here in Canberra. He's a professor of like quantum stuff, and I'm a massive nerd, so I've asked him questions and he's told me how stupid I am, and then that's like set me into like a deep spin for like almost like 10 days to try and work out why I'm so silly. But Carlos is he's the head of research for the Open Source Institute here in Canberra, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity for Link Digital and OpenSci to partner together, support local innovation, local students, building capabilities with civic tech, and also doing some really practical things like combining our efforts to pitch for grants and R&D type funding. So tell us more about Open Source Institute, pretty please.
Yes, Open Source Institute is an initiative that started with a collaboration between a local company in Canberra, as well, Instacluster, who being acquired by a big company, NetApp, and the ACT government, and then of course University of Canberra, with the goal of to increase the awareness of open source solutions and create more opportunity for students and get into that community and create a pipeline for companies who are using open source products to have employees, right? And it's to increase what we believe is the best way to present technology in the open way. It's been very new. I'm on the job in 5 months, and that when the institute actually starts. And I am very thankful for Steven, who is presenting me to his network. Then where we can then is, as Steven mentioned, as a researcher, I am a quantum physicist. Then I do research in explainable AI and quantum machine learning. We can try to provide that the scientific method to develop products at the industry and closing that gap between industry and academia. But I also can meet anyone to discuss philosophy about how we can explain the universe. My number was 7 because as a physicist, we want always try to explain everything as its minimum number possible. And
That's cool. Thank you, Carlos. A couple other people that I want to call out and put under the thumb. So there's Joel Natividad from Dat here. There is Joanna from Dartopian. There's Fergal. Yeah. And to wrap it up, also Alex Gustav, because he's product owner, right? So of all these folks that have been involved in CKAN for Joel for a very long time, and others for almost as long as well. I think there is this opportunity for CKAN as a digital public good, CKAN as this old school player from 2006 to 2009 in the early days of open data and open government, to reimagine itself and re-embark on its journey as a digital public good and a piece of digital public infrastructure. So I'd be interested to hear from you, Joel, because I know you're an evangelist like me.
I didn't know about that. I've just been, I guess, too ignorant and too stubborn, and I've been doing just keeping at it. Like you, Stephen, I've been through a roller coaster ride. We rode the open data wave when Obama came in and the open data energy was there, and we managed to win in New York, where Bloomberg, who made this money doing data, understood the value of data in the public sector. But I also went through the valley of sorrow the past few years when some of the energy of open data has kind of dissipated. But it gives me hope because one of the few pieces of legislation that passed unanimously in the House and the Senate was the Evidence Act in 2019 that actually, I think, some of the money came from to support the National Science Foundation POST program. So, given how divided things are here in the US, and I think in general, trust is at the deficit. Perhaps maybe data as I hate to use the term, maybe not the new oil, but the new raw material, will lead the way to hopefully regaining some of the trust and evidence-based decisions. So, and one of the frequent examples I always make is, when I say when Tim Berners-Lee decided to not patent the internet, and protocols like TCP/IP were also not patented, were key decisions that made it possible to have the modern digital life that we are living now. Right? Imagine if we stuck with proprietary protocols like IPX, SPX, or token ring, or we stuck with proprietary markup languages, not HTTP. We'll still be living in, like balkanized, like CompuServe Prodigy, all these things. So I think key thing is open source and open standards, and hopefully people are starting to think about digital public infrastructure and public interest technology, and hopefully, we can recapture that energy.
Yeah, I think we're there, right? I think we're on that turning point. There's a lot of like well wishes and hopes and dreams and different implementations for different like disparate groups. But right now, I think there's like a consolidation of understanding, the consolidation that technology alone won't solve things, and also society alone won't help things. That we are a little bit unbridled as a group of people. We have our great liberal democracies and we have our great public institutions, but even those are fallible. So we need quite capable controls, like quite capable, like adaptive, flexible, but yet controlling systems that will keep us a little bit reined in, keep a little bit sort of like coherent. Is my favorite buzzword at the moment. Whatever we want to do well in the world, you can easily fall off that bike and do quite poorly unless you have some sort of coherence to the way you approach it. And I think things like data really support that understanding. But yes, Amra, you had your hand up. Sorry. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I found the discussion very interesting. My name is Amra Dorjper. I am the co-founder and CEO of Wobby. And we are really kind of the new kid on the block in the open data space. Until last year, I was working as an investigative journalist. I'm from the other side of the world. I'm from Europe. And my problem was always when I looked for data or to make some news stories, I didn't find the right one at the right time immediately. It was such an effort to there are a lot of these open data portals, but I felt that there was not a space where I could, find all the data in one space, so I can really easily find the data that I need. And definitely in journalism space, it's a very fast-paced, you need the information right now kind of vibe. So most of my colleagues, they don't even know what, how you find open data, and they don't even know how to analyze it. And I don't know, simple things like create pivot tables. So I really saw with ChatGPT and generative AI revolution that's been going on, kind of a big opportunity to consolidate, combine these both things of, there are a lot of open data available, but the main problem is nobody is using them, or, in most cases, the end users, those who need it the most, NGOs, that kind of, or journalists, it's very hard for them. So with Wobby, we wanted to create a place where all these open data from CKAN, from Open Data Soft, and these other kind of companies are creating, or technologies that are creating them, and consolidate them in a way where people can easily find them. All kinds of non-technical users can find them, analyze them using generative AI in a conversational way. And this is kind of my effort. Also, you talked about the cathedral way of thinking, building things for in the long terms. I like to think in terms of creating a virtuous cycle where you start something and then it strengthens itself, and it has a self-perpetuating mechanism where others can pick it up and build something on top of it. So I would really be interested in collaborating these open data and generative AI use cases, because I think you just spoke like there has been ups and downs in open data, belief in open data. I think the generative AI wave can really be another pushing up, the up. I don't know how you say it in English. In English is not my native language. So, but anyway, I think you get my point.
Yeah, no, thanks. But yeah, thanks for jumping in, because absolutely, your use case is what open data is all about. The fact that you can build almost anything on top of it, because it is open and accessible and reusable and interoperable. So everything you said about the problems of open data is why there are organizations like yours that can build on top of it, right? Because in the science community, you talk about fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But the hardest one, I think, in the scientific community is accessible, because it requires accommodation. You can't just make something accessible from a computational point of view or a readable point of view in terms of data. It needs to be accessible from the point of view of the stakeholders that might gain insight from it or might be able to accommodate it into their lives, right? But those people are legion. Those people are many. So the kinds of ways that data and the insights from data can be accommodated require lots of different intermediaries, lots of different folks. So open data, the promise of open data, that it is findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, and it is open and available from jurisdictions and from other bespoke portals and domains, creates the opportunity for your organization, right? So it's not like a failing of open data. It's actually the benefit of open data that there are these opportunities to create even more value. That's the way I kind of see it. There's two sides to that coin. But from a supply point of view, what I'm really keen on is finding great avenues and ways by which the public benefit and the public value of data records and data archives and data custodians can systematically be put forward into the public domain in ways that it can be reusable. So accommodatable for sure, but yeah, so many different ways, right? Yeah. But fantastic, thanks, man. That's really cool. And definitely connects. Definitely, there is a whole community out there from that data publishing side. I want to hear from Virgil and Joanna though. We've got like 2 minutes left. Kate's going to get cranky with me, and people are going to start dropping. And I think I had one more poll, didn't I? Actually, sorry guys, let's do the poll. No, sorry. If everyone can just please debate. Virgil, I want you to jump in if you're still there, and Joanna, you should jump in because Joanna's been running the CKAN Monthly Live. She's been driving marketing around CKAN, promoting marketing for years. And I think this kind of inflection, this kind of momentum that's being generated now is definitely being supported by her efforts. And Fergal's a really great guy who's been supporting CKAN from a company called Derelicts out of Ireland. So,
it seems like a great vision, Stephen, and highly supportive of the end objective you're getting towards. As you say, we're just focused on kind of the plumbing and helping our clients with CKAN related projects, primarily to do with sharing data and opening data within and around their stakeholder systems. But certainly I'd like to know more in terms of how it works with the CKAN project in terms of the co-stewardship and OKFN, all of those structures in terms of see how all of that aligns over time. But in principle, having CKAN be more supportable by kind of donors and by the charitable sector seems to make sense as kind of an open source project and one that can give back to society. And how we can all work together to achieve that would be very positive. So very supportive of your vision. Yep.
Awesome. I'm going to take that as a tick. Tick for collaboration on that kind of front, right? Joanna, did you want to jump in if you're still there? Sorry. It's not quite reading. No, it's not right. Anyway, the poll was going to be, sorry, of the three types of things, which kind, so if you pictured yourself as a white hat wearing 42-year-old cowboy, you're about to saddle up on an initiative and go out there and like explore the world, exploit the world, whatever it might be. Three initiatives. One is, are you going to raise the opportunity for lots of different folks to jump in and really get involved? So this is kind of like the hackathon. This is kind of like the community development. This is like marketing. This is like making everyone aware that this stuff is amazing, and you can help get involved with that. The second one is, are you the kind of folk that would settle up to research and development, which is basically getting a really good understanding of what can be done quite well, and then working out how to deliver it quite well. So having a hypothesis, having an actual understanding of what we can do with data, what we can do with digital public goods, what we can do to support civil society through the technology that supports bureaucracy, not politics, but bureaucracy. And then the last is, as a, via that chat with Federal, like the actual funding and governance, like would you be the kind of chap, hat-wearing, white hat-wearing person that would jump on a horse and go, right, I'm going to find out how to govern and fund this thing, because I believe in its purpose, I believe in its vision, I believe how we can get there, and I can help bring folks together to actually fund this thing and make it work. They would be the three, and I'm going to have to leave that as the take-home question for everyone. Kate is going to email everyone, because I know she's going to follow up about the opportunity she had earlier. But for now, if there's any other questions, anything else that people wanted to address, because we are 2 minutes over, I'm happy to wait. I've been up for a while. It's midnight here. I will stay till like 4 a.m. So.
Right. Thank you so much, Stephen. And again, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you for giving us 1 hour of your time. And yep, once you leave the Zoom, there's a survey. Please do let us know. It is totally anonymous. Like, we have any idea who's going to give us a comments or suggestions. And please feel free to reach out if you have additional questions or follow-up ideas that you wanted to share to Stephen. Please do email us at info@linkdigital.com.au. Thank you so much. We're going to send you the early access to the recording within 24 hours. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the folks in Australia who were staying up so late. Awesome.
See you, Stephen.
Ciao, 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 ciao.
Thanks, Stephen. Oh, I think I lost him. Oh, hi, Lex.
Bye. Have a good night.